these are my picks for the top 20 most disturbing passages, lines, / events in the books. Now this is disturbing for me, and I sleep with all the lights on after watching a horror movie, so take this list with a grain of salt. Your idea of disturbing may be different than mine. Also, these are events that happened in the time the novels take place, so no events from Robert's Rebellion, Aegon's Conquest, etc. Pre A Song of Ice and Fire novels events will have its own video. To keep down on length, this video is broken into 2 parts. Number 20. During Daenerys' inquiry to buy the Unsullied, the slaver just offhandedly says, "Ask her if she wishes to view our fighting pits. The pit has a fine folly scheduled for the evening. A bear and 3 boys. 1 boy will be rolled in honey, 1 in blood, and 1 in rotting fish, and she may wager on which the bear will eat first." I know this guy is a huge ass, but the casual talk on putting wagers on which child will be torn apart by a bear was a bit disturbing. Just a bit. Number 19. Lady Hornwood. After Ramsay Bolton forced Lady Hornwood into marrying him, he locked her in a tower and neglected to feed her, causing her to starve to death while locked in the room. We later hear of her fate. When Sir Roderick had smashed down the door, he found her with her mouth all bloody and her fingers chewed off. I just imagine this poor starving woman eating her own fingers to stay alive. What's darker about this is she was afraid Ramsay was going to come for her, and people told her she'd be fine. I guess they were wrong. Number 18. The Riot in King's Landing. Things aren't going well in King's Landing when this takes place. The people are starving and not too happy with King Joffrey and his harsh sense of justice. A riot breaks out when the king's party is heading back to the castle. In the aftermath, we learn some of what happened. Sir Preston's corpse had been overlooked at first. The gold cloaks had been searching for a knight in white armor, and he had been stabbed and hacked so cruelly that he was red-brown from his head to his heel. Sir Santagar had been found in a gutter, his head a red pulp inside a crushed helm. Lady Tanda's daughter had surrendered her maidenhood to 100 shouting men behind a tanner's shop. The gold cloaks later found her wandering naked. On top of all that, the High Septon was ripped apart. While not the most graphic thing that has happened in the series, this event still unsettles me. Number 17. Thistle. Varamir trying to take over Thistle's body. Varamir is dying and decides to take over the body of the spear wife that had been caring for him. It's described, he summoned all the strength still in him, leapt out of his own skin, and forced himself inside her. Thistle arched her back and screamed, "Abomination!" Was that her, or him, or Hagen? He never knew. His old flesh fell back into the snowdrift as her fingers loosened. The spear wife twisted violently, shrieking. His shadow cat used to fight him wildly, and the snow bear had gone half mad for a time, snapping at trees and rocks and empty air. But this was worse. "Get out! Get out!" he heard her own mouth shouting. Her body staggered, fell, and rose again. Her hands railed, her legs jerked this way and that in some grotesque dance, as his spirit and her own fought for the flesh. And it gets worse when we read about her fighting him, ripping at her own clothes. Eventually she bites her own tongue off and dies, only to be resurrected as a white. This passage just freaks me out. You have this person caring for you, and you decide to take over their body. I just imagine Thistle going crazy as she's trying to stop him from taking over her body, and she's just so frantic to stop him, she bites off her own tongue and is trying to gouge her eyes out. While the ability to skin change seems cool, it's terrifying to think about it from the perspective of what is being taken over. Number 16. Cook in the Shadow Tower. There is a cook in the Shadow Tower that was fond of raping septas. Jon Snow explains, the cook burned a 7-pointed star into his flesh for every 1 septa he raped. His left arm is stars from wrist to elbow, and stars mark his calves as well. This passage is dark because not only do we learn about a man that thoroughly enjoyed raping, but that he celebrated each one by giving himself tattoos of their faith. Number 15. Septon Ut, the child molester. During the trials, outlaws come forward to tell the things the brave companions had done. A few speak of the boys that Septon Ut had carried off. The Septon wept and prayed through it all. "I am a weak reed," he told Beric. "I pray to the warrior for strength, but the gods made me weak. Have mercy on my weakness. The boys, the sweet boys. I never mean to hurt them." This doesn't need a lot of explanation why it was so twisted to read. Number 14. Theon's Dream. Theon's dream in A Clash of Kings is without a doubt chilling. In the dream, Theon sees the feast Ned Stark had thrown when King Robert came to Winterfell. There was music, laughter, and food until he notices the room had grown dark. The music is replaced with discords and silence, and the wine he'd been drinking became bitter in his mouth. Theon looks up to see he is now dining with the dead. King Robert sat with his guts spilling out on the table from a great gash in his belly. Lord Eddard was headless beside him. Corpses lined the benches below, gray-brown flesh sloughing off their bones as they raised their cups to toast. Worms crawling in and out of the holes that were their eyes. A slim, sad girl who wore a crown of pale roses and a white gown spattered with gore sat amongst them. Then the tall doors opened with a crash, and Robb came walking out of the night. Greywind stalked beside, eyes burning, and man and wolf alike bled from 100 savage wounds. Theon woke with a scream. Number 13. She remembers. When a Frey sees Catelyn Stark post the Red Wedding, he thinks, No, I saw her die. She was dead for a day and a night before they stripped her naked and threw her body in the river. Raymond opened her throat from ear to ear. She was dead. Then we have the description of her. Her cloak and collar hid the gash his brother's blade had made, but her face was even worse than he remembered. The flesh had gone pudding soft in the water and turned the color of curdled milk. Half her hair was gone, and the rest had turned as white and brittle as a crone's. Beneath her ravaged scalp, her face was shredded skin and black blood where she had raked herself with her nails. But her eyes were the most terrible thing. Her eyes say him, and they hated. Undead Catelyn's description is just awful. Number 12. Jon's letter. Jon receives a letter from Cotter Pike, who went to Hardhome with 11 ships to bring people trapped there back to the Wall. The letter says, at Hardhome with 6 ships, wild seas, Blackbird lost with all hands, 2 ships driven aground on Skane, Talon taking water, very bad here, wildlings eating their own dead things in the woods. Bravosi captains will only take women and children on their ships. Witch women call us slavers. Attempt to take Stormcrow defeated, 6 crew dead, many wildlings, 8 ravens left, dead things in the water, send help by land, seas racked by storms. I have a thing about undead, and that's the part that gets me. Dead things in the water. Not only are the wildlings eating their dead, but they are surrounded by dead things in the woods and in the water, and who knows exactly what those dead things in the water are. Number 11. Varys' birds. This conversation Arya overhears. What can I do? I will. I must have gold and another 50 birds. So many? The ones you need are hard to find. So young, to know their letters. Perhaps older? Not die so easy? No. The younger are safer. Treat them gently. If they kept their tongues, the risk. This conversation boils down to Varys buying little birds or little children, but it's hard to get so many because when they have their tongues cut out, to reduce risk, they easily die from infection or bleeding to death. And I doubt Varys lets them live to adulthood. When a certain Lannister is finished off by the little birds, it made this passage more disgusting to me. I can only imagine how many children have died, and Varys' need to get more of his little birds and mice. Numbers 10 through 1 will be next Sunday. Which of these events did you find the most disturbing? All of October is Halloween-themed videos such as Darkest Passages, Top Killers, Scary Diseases, etc. Release days are Sunday, Wednesday, and an extra video or 2 each week. November we go back to our regular Sunday and Wednesday videos and continue with the North.